That's true. Maybe I'm just incapable of feeling empathy, which, I'll just have to have a little talk with someone about that.
Welcome to Tech Tales. I'm Corbin Davenport.
And I'm Evan Hirsh.
And today we're back for the last part of our series on the Samsung Galaxy Note 7, which was that exploding phone from 2016 that was a mess. In the last part, we talked about the initial recall Samsung setup, and we talked about some of the exploding phones that were from that first batch. And then we talked about how the quote-unquote fixed Note 7 that was not supposed to blow up was still blowing up. And then we mentioned that Samsung started a recall for the fixed Note 7 on October 13th of 2016. And by that point, there were 96 reports of Note 7 batteries overheating just in the United States. So that's where we're at. We're still in late 2016 here.
Good thing is this is the worst thing that happens that year, Corbin. So
yeah, nothing else went wrong in 2016.
Everything was fine. But yeah, so everything's on fire, literally and metaphorically.
Yeah. So this is around the time Samsung starts being more aggressive with the software updates for the Note 7 that basically bricks them in different ways to try to get anyone still holding on to these phones to go to Samsung and exchange them or go to wherever they bought the phones from. We already talked about in, I believe, the second part that some Note 7s received an update that reduced the battery capacity to 60%, I believe.
Right. Yeah, we did talk about this.
Yeah. So on December 12th of 2016, Samsung pushed an update to Note 7 phones in Canada that shut down the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth radios.
Oh.
And then they later worked with the cell networks in Canada to actually block Note 7s from connecting to towers. So it was no longer usable as a phone. A couple days later, on December 15th, Samsung started rolling out an update to Note 7 phones in the United States that prevented them from charging above 30%.
Just making it worse and worse.
Yeah. Reading about all these different updates kind of gives the impression that each country's version of Samsung was like trying a different way to get people to take the phones back. Because like I would have expected all these to kind of roughly follow the same pattern, but they were doing different downgrades in different countries, and it seems like maybe it wasn't super coordinated.
It could be that Samsung is one of those like multinational corporations, like where they have essentially all these branches that are semi-autonomous for each region, right? And they essentially take their own individual actions rather than having like a central corporate that more or less kind of micromanages everything. Which I wouldn't be shocked. It's what Samsung seems like, right? They seem like they're one of those companies, and that's how they operate.
Yeah. It might have been that. It might have also just been maybe they weren't legally allowed to do certain software downgrades in some regions.
That's a good one too, yeah.
Yeah, like the next example I have here is actually a good case of that. On December 19th, Samsung rolled out another update for Note 7 phones in the US that prevented them from charging at all. So once you install this update, the phone would no longer charge. However, Verizon initially refused to push this update to its Note 7 phones. And they said, quote, "We will not push a software upgrade that will limit the ability for the Note 7 to work as a mobile device in the heart of the holiday travel season. We do not want to make it impossible to contact family, first responders, or medical professionals in an emergency situation." Quote.
Okay, I think that's a pretty fair response, though.
Yeah, this is December 19th. Probably a lot of people are traveling. You don't want to be stuck at the airport with no phone. That really sucks.
Oh, wait, this is December? Didn't, the recall start... the recall was almost basically done by, October at this point, right? By October, you should have given your phone back.
Yes, the recall for the first Note 7 was, I believe, late August, early September. The recall for the second Note 7 was at the end of October.
Okay, so people have had like a full month to give back their exploding phone.
Yes.
I feel like at this point, you should just push the update that bricks it. Like, if people have not given their phone back, you're essentially almost a flight risk.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't do that.
Now, Verizon did eventually push this update. They just waited until January 5th.
That makes sense.
And Verizon also at this point did the thing that some carriers in Canada did, where they blocked the Note 7 from connecting to their network. So, again, you couldn't actually use it as a phone, even if you refused to download the update that limited the charge capacity.
Wow. That's like death by 1,000 cuts at this point, right? Like, what is it? You can't charge it. You can't call with it.
You can't connect to Wi-Fi or Bluetooth if you have a Canada one.
What can you do at that point? You know?
You can use it as a pipe bomb, Evan.
That's true. Yeah, you can.
It's a really good doorstop. You know, I bet the S Pen is probably good for like picking your nose. It's
true. It definitely is true. Yeah. I don't know. It definitely makes sense. I see Verizon's whole thing with like, you know, they can't do it. They had to limit it. They had to do that recall, but also you can't just like take away people's phones in the middle of the travel season. Regardless, I don't know. I mean, I feel like wherever the people are traveling, there's a Verizon store. So like,
yeah.
You're not going to remote Alaska. Like you're flying to somewhere where there's a Verizon store that you can exchange it. Yeah, no, like at this point, look, I get it. The Note's a great phone. I loved.
It's not worth dying over, though.
Definitely not worth dying over.
So while all this was happening with the software updates, there's another public incident about the Note 7. So on December 20th, a American flight was delayed and almost diverted after someone had a Wi-Fi hotspot on the plane that was called Samsung Galaxy Note 7.
Oh my god.
So this one's really funny because someone on the plane was live tweeting it. And I think the tweets from this are still live. But basically this flight is in the air for about an hour until there's an announcement that asks, quote, "If anyone has a Galaxy Note 7, please press your call button," quote.
Oh my god.
And no one's fessing up. Eventually the captain of the plane gets on the, an announcement call. And he says, quote, "This is the captain speaking. Apparently the plane is going to have to get diverted and searched if no one fesses up soon," quote. Finally, the person with that hotspot came forward and told the crew he didn't actually have a Note 7. So it was something else with the Wi-Fi network name set to the Note 7.
As like a joke? Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty funny joke. I'm not going to lie.
I assume it was a joke because that is pretty fun. Like, if you weren't in a compressed air cabin flying through the air with a possible explosive phone, it would be pretty funny.
I mean, I think it's pretty funny regardless, but that's just maybe my sense of humor.
We're not on the plane with the Note 7.
That's true. Maybe I'm just incapable of feeling empathy, which, I'll just have to have a little talk with someone about that. But that definitely like goes to show how like far and wide this whole problem was, right?
Like we mentioned before that the FAA had already put out recommendations that the phone should not be on a plane, or at the very least it should be powered off entirely. And with a lot of airplanes and airlines, that was like a message you heard while you're getting on the plane. It's like, if you have a Note 7, turn it off. You don't want to see it.
Yep.
Now, with this story, again, I'm pretty sure it was a joke. I did see some comments that claim that maybe this could have been this person had a Note 7 and then they returned it and transferred their data to another phone and that carried over the hotspot name, like in the settings.
That would have been...
I can't find any information that was the case.
That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know if Samsung's phones did that when you migrated data. I know they saved like the list of Wi-Fi networks you had connected to with your old phone and like the passwords, but I don't know if it saved hotspot data. That'd be kind of weird.
Yeah, that would be weird, especially since like usually what is it? At least on iOS and what Android phones that I used to use, the hotspot data name was generally whatever your phone is called. You know, like Michael's Galaxy Note 7 or Michael's like Galaxy or
Right.
something like that. Usually they're not like phone specific, so my thought is it was a joke. It was a great joke.
So on January 23rd of 2017 is when Samsung announces the results of its internal investigation on the Note 7. So this whole time they've been trying to get to the bottom of why they've now released two phones that are blowing up.
Mm-hmm.
And now we finally get some answers. So I'm going to read their statement. They said, quote, "A short circuit within the battery may occur when there is damage to the separator that allows the positive and negative electrodes to meet within the jelly roll of the battery. Based on a detailed analysis of the affected batteries, both the battery from the first recall and the battery from the second recall, we identified separate factors that originated in and were specific to two different batteries." Quote. So basically, the batteries in that first batch of Note phones had casings that were too small. So the essentially like the
Okay.
battery was like crammed into a smaller physical space than it should have been. And that led to thermal failure and short circuiting. And then that's what would cause the fire.
Okay, but that was only the first one.
That was only the first one. So when that happened, Samsung did what I think was probably any company would have done here, and they switched to a different battery manufacturer for the second model. So they're like, okay, these batteries are bad. We need to go buy our batteries from someone else for the fixed one.
Mm-hmm.
However, the batteries from the second manufacturer had high welding burrs on the positive electrodes that caused the insulation tape to break. And also they found some battery cells that didn't have protective tape at all.
Interesting.
So those batteries were catching on fire for an entirely different reason.
Huh.
So the end result was the same on both phones. They were both catching on fire, but it was for completely different reasons, and the batteries were from entirely different places.
So I'm really proud I haven't cursed so far. So the battery failed for two totally separate.
Yeah.
That's just that. I don't know. That just seems like bad luck.
Also, when they did this announcement, they mentioned that 96% of all Note 7 phones had been returned to the company. So by January 23rd, we have 96% of the Note 7 phones back. So that's kind of how the recall's going at this point. Most of them are back to Samsung. However, plenty of people still didn't want to give their phones back.
They didn't.
There was a group of people that really thought the Note 7 was just better than anything else they could buy, and they didn't want to give it back because there was no alternative to the Note 7 when it was discontinued. And they didn't want to wait for the Galaxy S8, which was coming in a few months, or the Galaxy Note 8, which was even farther away. So they just kept it. I shouldn't have to explain this, but you should not keep a phone that is blowing up on people. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, you should not keep a phone that explodes. It's not good.
It's not good. You shouldn't do that. Even if you think the phone is really cool, it's not a good idea.
Now, okay. Something I have been thinking about, right? To be totally fair. The phone is definitely like a collector's item now, right?
Yeah, sort of.
Can you go on eBay and get one? Can I get one?
Don't get one.
Okay, eBay doesn't let me. Oh, here we go. Oh wow, they're selling for a lot of money. I'm kind of shocked actually, but nope, they're there.
So one great, or maybe terrifying is the right word, but I'm going to say great source of these people is the subreddit Note 7. This is where a lot of the people who really didn't want to let go of these phones like congregated, basically. And like there's a lot of posts on there of people sharing applications they set up to like block system updates or turn off packages that were responsible for some of the downgrades. It's kind of terrifying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you some of these comments, and you're gonna read them. You're gonna act the role of a hesitant to return their Note 7 owner.
Well, I am hesitant to return my Note 7. I'm gonna hold on. Let's close eyes for a minute. Get into the role. My motivation is that the tech media is all wrong. This is all a big ploy in order to sell more iPhone 7s.
Evan, you're almost verbatim quoting one of the comments I have here.
There's no way.
The last comment I have here is almost exactly that. So we'll get to that one. Here's your first comment from the Note 7 subreddit.
Okay. All right, I'll read these. I'll take my chances. Over 1 million people are still using their Note 7. Smiley face. Between now and when I get the S8, I'm willing to bet my phone won't catch fire. Because it won't. Now, if T-Mobile or Sammy bricks the phone, then that's out of my control. But until then, smiley face. Their phone won't catch fire, Corbin. Because they're different.
They're built different.
But they're different. They're built different. I get these people, like, if I was in these people's shoes, right, this would suck. Okay, if I was upgrading from, like, a Note 6, whatever, right? If I was upgrading from a Note 6, I could survive another year, in worst case, without a new phone upgrade. But, like, yeah, there wasn't really anything like the Note that fulfilled that use case with the stylus and with the note-taking and everything. So they basically just had to, like, deal with a phone that doesn't suit their needs. So I get the denialism. I get all of this. I empathize with it.
I get where these people are coming from, because at this point, and still kind of now, Samsung was the only company making a good phone with a stylus. And
yeah,
there was other parts of the Note 7 that were pretty unique. But there's just this, like, complete disregard for everyone else's safety. This might seem like a little bit of a weird takeaway, but when I was reading these comments, the main thing that was jumping out to me is this sounds exactly like anti-vaxxers. If you switch out some of the words here, these are the same exact things that...
I just won't get COVID.
Right. Yeah, like, it's I won't get COVID. There's only a couple Note 7s exploded, right? Like, you know, only 5% of people have died from COVID or whatever. If you switch out a couple of the words, it's the same exact arguments, and it's the same attitude of, like, I'm going to do what I want, even though I could potentially be harming other people with my decision, right? Like, if you have a Note 7 and it catches fire on a plane, you just put 200 people in danger. Or, you know, we talked about in the last episode that someone's Note 7 caught on fire in their Jeep that was parked in their driveway. Like, that fire could have spread to other vehicles and other houses around there and possibly killed people. Thankfully, no one died. And thankfully, as far as I know, no one ever died from any of these Note 7 accidents. Like, I think that probably would have been covered somewhere.
It for sure. And honestly, like, you know, as much as we're, you know, talking about this as like a disaster, like, to Samsung's credit, that a mishandling of this situation that could have happened. If this situation was handled, like, very improperly with the recall, like, it could have been a lot worse. And at the very least, like, now that I'm learning more about it, it seems like they made bad design decisions, reacted properly, got unlucky, and then reacted correctly. And because of that, like, serious injury and worse seems to have been pretty much avoided.
Yeah, like, definitely when I was doing the research for this, I can't really think of anything Samsung could have done differently here that would have led to a better outcome, except maybe unless they made the Note 7 have, like, a replaceable battery, and then they wouldn't have needed to recall the whole phone. They could just tell everyone to pop their batteries out and put the non-explosive ones in. But
then there weren't non-explosive ones. That's kind of the problem. Yeah. That's the issue, is that they couldn't make them.
Yeah, like you said, this phone came out in August. It started blowing up on people. About a week later, I think it was, they started the recall. So that's pretty quick for a multinational corporation. That's some speed. Yeah. And
yeah, they did well.
Yeah. And even though they had already sold like 1 million or more of these, they had 96% of them back by January.
It's pretty good. Regardless, let's go on to the next. Now that I'm done basically being like Samsung did a good job here. They did the textbook.
Yeah.
Let's make fun of these people who aren't giving their notes back.
Here's another comment for you.
Okay. I have package disabler premium installed and will not fall victim to the first bout of updates released to disable the Note 7. My original Note 7 received an update created by Samsung and pushed out T-Mobile that didn't allow past 20% charge. Totally disabled my phone by forcing it to boot loop upon rebooting. I had no choice but to put a mask on. I had no choice but to exchange it. I'm glad I did because the exchange phone works great and doesn't overheat. However, I've disabled all the update packages, including updates, firmware updates, and security updates. I will keep my phone. There's nothing better than the Note 7 on the market right now. There's just no other phone that I'm interested in. End quote. So I want to talk to you about Tesla. And now Corbin's like, oh no, wrong person to put on it. But one of my favorite things that I love is I drive one, and I read all the time about like people who have problems with theirs. Like, what is it? There was this one thing I saw where this one person was driving a Tesla on the road, and all of a sudden their emergency brake, their brakes just failed, and they crashed into a car.
Right.
The brakes just gave out, and the first thing that they always say is, "Best car I ever owned, by the way." And I'm like, no, it's not. The best car you ever owned would not have failing brakes. Right. Like, this is not... There are phones that are better than the Note 7 on the market. And at that point, it is any other phone.
Yeah.
Like, if your phone is exploding and your car... brakes are failing, it is not very good at the basic thing it's supposed to do.
Right. And at this point, carriers are starting to block the phone from connecting to networks to get these exact people to bring them back. And like the person in this comment is not only choosing to not bring the phone back, but they're like actively micromanaging the software on their phone to make sure it can't install any more firmware updates.
Well, I mean, one cool thing, I guess, is if they didn't want any firmware updates, it's a good thing they bought an Android phone. All right.
I saw that one coming, but it was good.
But no, these comments are great. Keep them coming. Let's go.
Okay. I've got one more here for you. This is the worst one, or maybe the best.
Oh, it's probably going to be my favorite. Does anyone personally know someone whose Note 7 burst into flames? The conspiracy theorist in me says this is just a ploy to get everyone to return their Note 7, as there's no backdoor for the government to get it. Oh my god.
I told you, you basically read that one earlier.
I thought it was, because of like evil, other corporation. Like it's so Huawei can finally get a 1% foothold in the American market. No, it's pretty funny that like that's real. That's a real comment.
I want to believe that one was just a troll, but I really don't know. There were a lot of people like this. And again, like this is another one where I'm reading and it's like, oh my god, I heard from way too many of these people in 2020. Like, just swap out the word. Like, does anyone personally know someone who's got COVID? Someone
who died from COVID? Yeah, no. I mean, it's
the government.
It's the explosions are fun. The explosions are mild, Corbin. It's just a mild case of your hand. It's just a 2nd-degree burn. Like, it's not even a...
2nd-degree burns are good for your immune system.
It helps build up your immune system and prevent your hand from further degree burns. It's so wild. I don't even know what else to say here, but I do love that there are just Note 7 denialists. Like that really makes my day.
So anyway, that was fun.
That was, yeah.
So with most of the phones returned to Samsung now had a different problem they had to deal with. They expected to sell a lot of Note 7s before they started blowing up, of course. So they already had a lot of motherboards made for the phone. They had a lot of the displays made. They had a lot of the chipsets. They had a bunch of components that they had already manufactured that were going to go into these phones. But now the Note 7 was discontinued. So what do they do with all these parts?
Well, they make another phone.
They make another phone. On July 2nd, 2017, Samsung reveals the Galaxy Note Fan Edition. And this phone is basically a not blow up Note 7 for real this time. Now that they've identified what the issue is, it will not blow up.
Right.
This phone is identical in hardware and design compared to the original Note 7 with a few minor changes. There was no Samsung logo on the front. The back of the phone now said Galaxy Note Fan Edition instead of Galaxy Note 7, so no one would get it confused with the phone that was blowing up. The battery capacity was reduced from 3,500 milliamps to 3,200 milliamps because, again, the main issue, at least the first time, was they were putting too large of a battery in the frame, so now they decreased the battery capacity so it would fit.
Mm-hmm.
And also by this point, the Galaxy S8 had come out, and Samsung usually does 2 big software refreshes each year when they make like the S phone and then when they make the Note. So the S8 had some new software stuff compared to the Note 7, and for this phone, Samsung brought that to the Fan Edition. So this could do everything the S8 could do. I might have had a newer version of Android, I'm not sure. But yeah, basically it was just a Note 7 with a different name and a slightly smaller battery, and it would not blow up.
Well, those are all big improvements.
Those are some good improvements, yes.
Yeah. How did it sell? Because one question I have, right, is so this is the Galaxy Note Fan Edition. Is this the first Fan Edition that Samsung has done? Because Fan Edition has become like a relatively yearly occurrence from Samsung for their, at least their Galaxy S series.
Yeah.
Where it is basically their kind of lower tier general consumer model Galaxy S.
It's the peg just below the Galaxy S phones. But yes, this is the actual source of that Fan Edition branding.
Okay, cool.
Because they made this, and then I don't know if there were any phones in between, but there was this phone, and then the one that really kickstarted it was the Galaxy S20 Fan Edition. That was really popular in 2019, I believe that's when that came out.
Yeah.
But
that was like 3-4 years later.
I don't know if there were any phones in between them, but yeah, it is kind of weird that they reused that brand.
Yeah.
As for how well this sold, this is the interesting part. So Samsung first released this in South Korea, which is, where they're based. And they said initially that they would only make this in limited batches, I guess just until they ran out of Note 7 parts. That's what I would assume. I did see a product listing for it also in the Philippines. I don't know if it was released in any other regions besides those 2 countries. Definitely never came to the United States or Canada or anywhere here. I don't know why they didn't try to sell it in America. Assuming they had enough parts, they could have tried selling it to these crazy people who wanted to keep their blowing up Note 7s.
No, the blowing up is part of the charm, so it's not going to work out well for them.
They wouldn't want to get the one with the government backdoor. The Note 7 is the phone that doesn't have that.
No. But that's interesting that this was the start of the Fan Edition thing, because it's become like almost a yearly thing in their Galaxy S lineup. They have they have the regular S, they have the S Plus, they have the Ultra at the highest end, and then at the lower end they have the Fan Edition.
Yeah. Now the Fan Edition is the one they make a few months later that has the same hardware but with a cheaper build.
My guess is that it's also just kind of them getting rid of like old inventory. Like basically every tech company does this. They'll have like some new hardware that is essentially just using like older parts from their previous generations.
Right, like every single iPod Touch.
The $300 iPad is basically that. It's kind of wild that the legacy of the Note 7 lives on in the modern Samsung phone.
Yeah, I really do want to know why they reused that name, because it seems like something that like they'd want to release and then just never talk about again.
I guess it's, yeah, if you don't look into it, you have no idea that this is how it started.
Is this like the smartphone version of finding out like the origins of BMW?
Don't look too deep into that, man. Look, Mercedes. Look, I love all those car companies, man, and I've just chosen to ignore all that stuff. Just, it's kind of, again, it's crazy how much impact this has had on Samsung's phone line. And now what's funny is, like, as I guess we're moving on from the legacy of the Note 7, they made a couple notes after that, right? But like the Note line seems to be gone now, right?
So that fan edition came out in July of 2017. In September of 2017, we finally got the Galaxy Note 8. So there is once again a normal Galaxy Note phone available that did not blow up. That phone was not blowing up, so that's good. That's a huge improvement from the previous model.
Big improvement.
And then, they kept going. We got the Note 9 a year later. The Note 10 came out. Then there was the Note 20. They skipped. They decided to make the numbers based on the year. So in 2020, we got the Note 20.
Oh, that's why they did it? That makes sense. I thought they just wanted to just jump up numbers for whatever reason.
Yeah, they looked at Chrome and they were like, we can do that.
I mean, honestly, it's a pretty solid naming scheme.
Yeah. I don't like having to go to Wikipedia every time to figure out when this iPhone came out.
Well, you can always just go to me. I've memorized it.
You got the chart.
Yeah, no, honestly, just tell me an iPhone right now. I'll tell you the year. Go.
iPhone XR.
The iPhone XR released iPhone XS, which was the 11 came out the 11 came out 2018.
Okay. I have no way of knowing if you're correct.
Let me see. Okay. Hold on. Let me just check. That's the last thing we do on this. That I'm right. I am right.
Good job.
Thank you. This is my skill.
So, Evan, you got anything you'd like to plug?
Follow me on Twitter, please.
What's your Twitter?
I want like one. It's at Evan Extreme. Okay. Just one follower from this.
All right. Everyone has to go follow Evan. That's the rule.
You must. Please